The morning mist clung to the forest floor like smoke from a dying fire, and through her scope, Elena Vasquez could see her target's breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. 300 meters away, the enemy patrol moved with the casual arrogance of soldiers who believed themselves safe behind their own lines. She had been lying motionless for 4 hours, her body temperature matching the frozen earth beneath her ghillie suit. The Remington 700 felt like an extension of her arms now, its weight as familiar as her own heartbeat. Through the 10x scope, she watched the patrol leader raise his hand, signaling a halt. He was checking his map, probably wondering why their radio contact had gone silent. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying this story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Elena knew why. Martinez and Chun had taken out the communications post, 2 clicks south, just after midnight. Everything was going according to plan, except for the part where command had explicitly ordered her to observe and report only. Negative on the shot, Reaper 6, crackled through her earpiece. You are eyes on only. Repeat, do not engage. Major Richardson's voice carried that particular tone reserved, for reminding her that she was still on probation. 3 months into her deployment with the 75th Ranger Regiment, and she was still fighting the same battle she'd been fighting since basic, proving that Elena Vasquez belonged in the field, not behind a desk filing reports. The patrol leader was pointing north now, directly toward the ridge where Bravo team was supposed to extract in 6 hours. If this patrol reached that position, 12 good soldiers would walk into an ambush. Elena's finger found the trigger guard, muscle memory from 10,000 practice rounds guiding her movement. Reaper 6, you have 12 friendlies depending on this intel, she whispered into her throat mic. Patrol is moving toward extraction point Charlie. Request permission to engage. Static. Then, negative, Vasquez. Fall back to your secondary position and continue observation. Elena watched through her scope as the patrol leader folded his map and gestured for his men to move out. They were heading north, just as she'd predicted. In 4 hours, they'd be in position to cut off Bravo team's only route home, she thought. About her brother Miguel, who'd been killed in Afghanistan when his convoy ran into an ambush that intelligence had missed. She thought about the recruits back at Benning who called her Army Barbie when they thought she couldn't hear. She thought about the betting pool some of the Rangers had running on how long before she washed out of the program. Most of all, she thought about the 12 men who were counting on her to keep them alive, whether they knew it or not. Elena adjusted her position slightly, feeling the familiar settling that came with committing to a shot. The patrol leader had stopped again, this time to light a cigarette. Through her scope, she could see the ember glow orange against his lips. I'm sorry, sir, she whispered, though she knew Richardson couldn't hear her. Then she took a breath, let half of it out, and squeezed the trigger. The .308 round covered the distance in less than half a second. The patrol leader dropped without a sound, his cigarette still glowing where it fell beside his body. His men scattered, seeking cover, shouting in confusion. But Elena was already working the bolt, acquiring her next target. 2 minutes later, 6 enemy soldiers lay dead in the snow, and the rest had retreated south. Bravo team's extraction route was clear. Elena's radio erupted with Richardson's voice. But she switched it off and began the methodical process of packing her equipment. She'd deal with the consequences later. Right now, she had 11 more shots to make before the day was over, and a reputation to build one bullet at a time. As she crawled backward through the underbrush, Elena Vasquez didn't know that she'd just fired the first shots in what would become a legendary military career. She didn't know that military historians would someday write about this moment, or that her actions would inspire a generation of women to enter combat roles. All she knew was that she'd made the right call, and that 12 American soldiers would be going home to their families because of it. The war was just beginning, and so was her legend. The drill sergeant's spit landed on Elena's cheek as he screamed, but she didn't flinch. Around her, 37 recruits stood at attention in the Georgia heat, sweat streaming down their faces in identical rivers of misery. "Vasquez!" Sergeant Torres bellowed, his voice echoing across the training ground. "What makes you think you belong here with the big boys?" Elena kept her eyes fixed on a point somewhere beyond the horizon. She'd known this moment would come from the day she'd signed her enlistment papers. Every woman who'd ever tried to break into a combat role had faced this question in some form. "I want to serve my country, drill sergeant." Louder. "I want to serve my country, drill sergeant." Torres circled her like a shark scenting blood. "You know what I think, Vasquez? I think you're here because you saw too many movies. I think you're gonna wash out in week 3 when things get real. I think you're taking up a spot that should belong to someone with actual potential." Elena's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice level. "No excuse, drill sergeant. No excuse is right. You're gonna get people killed out there with your Girl Scout cookie training. You understand me?" "Yes, drill sergeant." But Torres wasn't done. He leaned in close enough that Elena could smell the coffee on his breath. "Your daddy couldn't talk you out of this stupid idea, so now it's my job to save your life by breaking you down. You ready for that, princess?" The princess comment hit like a physical blow. Elena's father hadn't tried to talk her out of anything. He'd been killed in Iraq when she was 16. Master Sergeant Antonio Vasquez had died dragging wounded soldiers to safety during the Second Battle of Fallujah. The medal they'd given him posthumously was pretty, but it hadn't brought him home. "My father was Master Sergeant Antonio Vasquez, 1st Infantry Division," Elena said quietly. "He earned 2 Bronze Stars and a Purple Heart before he was killed. In action, he taught me that service isn't about gender, drill sergeant. It's about honor." For the first time since the conversation began, Torres stepped back. Something shifted in his expression, not softness, exactly, but recognition. He'd served in Iraq, too. He knew the name. "Well, I'll be damned," Torres said, his voice dropping to a normal volume. "Tony Vasquez's daughter. Should have guessed from the stubborn streak." He studied Elena's face for a long moment. "Your daddy was a good soldier. One of the best I served with." "Thank you, drill sergeant." "Don't thank me yet, Vasquez. Because if you're really Tony's daughter, then you can handle what I'm about to put you through. And what I'm about to put you through is gonna make grown men cry." Torres was right. The next 16 weeks were the hardest of Elena's life. While her male counterparts dealt with the standard brutality of infantry training, Elena faced additional challenges designed to test whether she truly belonged in combat roles. She carried heavier packs. She ran longer distances. She endured extra PT sessions after the rest of the platoon had collapsed into their bunks. Torres pushed her harder than anyone else, but she began to understand why. He wasn't trying to break her. He was forging her into something stronger than steel. The breakthrough came during week 8. On the rifle range. Elena had always been a good shot. Her father had taught her to hunt in the woods behind their house in New Mexico, but military marksmanship was different. Precision, consistency, breathing control, and the ability to perform under pressure were skills that took months to develop. While other recruits struggled to hit targets at 300 meters, Elena was consistently placing shots in the center ring. At 500, her natural steady hands, combined with an almost supernatural ability to read wind and weather conditions, made her a standout performer. "Vasquez," Torres called during a particularly challenging shooting exercise. "You're up next. Target." At 800 meters, crosswind from the east. 800 meters was beyond the standard qualification distance. Torres was testing her, seeing how far her abilities could stretch. Elena settled into the prone position, feeling the familiar calm that came with looking through a rifle scope. The target was barely visible to the naked eye, a small silhouette wavering in the heat haze. Elena controlled her breathing, feeling her heartbeat steady. She could sense the wind patterns, see how the grass moved in waves across the field. Everything else faded away, the other recruits, the heat, the pressure. There was only the target, the rifle, and the space between them. She squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out across the range, and a moment later, the scorekeeper's voice crackled through the loudspeaker. Perfect center hit at 800 meters. The other recruits stared. Elena had just made a shot that most of them couldn't make at half the distance. Torres nodded slowly. "Everybody see that?" He called out. "That's what happens when you stop worrying about what's between your legs and start focusing on what's between your ears." From that day forward, Elena's place in the unit was secure. Her fellow recruits stopped seeing her as an outsider and started seeing her as an asset. More importantly, Torres began recommending her for advanced training programs. "You've got a gift, Vasquez," he told her during a rare moment of privacy. "Real shooters are born, not made. All the training in the world can't teach what you've got naturally." "What do I have, drill sergeant?" Torres considered the question carefully. "Patience. Most people get excited when they're shooting. Let adrenaline take over. You get calmer, steadier, like the pressure actually helps you focus." He paused. "Your daddy had the same quality, but his was with people. You've got it with precision." Elena felt a warm pride spread through her chest. It was the first time anyone had compared her favorably to her father. "I want to try out for sniper school after 8, she said. Torres smiled grimly. "I figured you might. It's gonna be even harder than this, you know. They wash out 90% of candidates. And you'll be the first woman to even attempt the full program." "I understand, drill sergeant." "Do you? Because it's not just about making shots anymore. Snipers operate alone, sometimes for days. They make life and death decisions without backup. They carry the weight of every trigger pull for the rest of their lives." Torres's expression grew serious. "And they don't get to blame anyone else when things go wrong." Elena met his gaze steadily. "I'm ready for that responsibility, drill sergeant." Torres studied her face for a long moment, looking for any trace of doubt or false bravado. Finally he nodded. "I believe you are. I'll make the recommendation. But Vasquez?" "Yes, drill sergeant?" "When you get there, remember that you're not just representing yourself. You're representing every woman who'll come after you. Don't screw it up." Elena graduated basic training ranked second in her class, behind only a former college football player who had 6 inches and 60 pounds on her. But in marksmanship, she was ranked first by a significant margin, standing at graduation. Watching her mother pin on her new rank insignia, Elena thought about the journey that had brought her here. The doubts, the extra training, the constant need to prove herself, it had all led to this moment. But as she looked ahead to sniper school and the challenges that lay beyond, Elena realized that basic training had been just the beginning. The real test was yet to come. Elena's ghillie suit was soaked with sweat and crawling with actual insects, but she hadn't moved in 8 hours. Somewhere in the woods ahead of her, an instructor was watching through high-powered optics, waiting for her to make a mistake. One wrong movement, one careless shift in position, and she'd fail this phase of training. The Scout Sniper Advanced Target Interdiction course was designed to break students mentally as much as physically. Of the 42 soldiers who'd started the program 6 weeks ago, only 12 remained. Elena was the only woman who'd made it past the first elimination round. "Movement, 2 o'clock, whispered Private Collins, her training partner for this exercise. He was a Marine from Kansas, who'd initially resented being paired with her, but had gradually come to respect her abilities. Elena shifted her eyes slightly, careful not to move her head. Through her scope, she could see an instructor in full camouflage, moving through the trees, trying to spot their position. They were supposed to identify and track 3 different instructors without being detected themselves. "I see him," she breathed. "Instructor Hartman. Mark him at 400 meters, moving west." Collins made a note on his pad. They'd been tracking instructors all morning, building a pattern of movement that they'd report back to the command post. It was tedious work, requiring absolute patience and attention to detail. "This is bullshit," Collins muttered after another hour had passed. "My legs are going numb." Elena understood the frustration, but she'd learned to find a meditative quality in the waiting. While other students fought against the stillness, she embraced it. Her mind could wander while her body remained perfectly motionless, a skill that her instructors had begun to notice. "Contact front," Elena whispered suddenly. Collins tensed. Through the scope, Elena could see Chief Warrant Officer Reynolds moving directly toward their position. Reynolds was the senior instructor, a veteran with 20 years of experience and a reputation for washing out students who showed even the slightest weakness. Reynolds walked within 10 feet of their position, stopped, and began scanning the area with his binoculars. Elena held her breath, knowing that any movement or sound would end her training immediately. For 5 eternal minutes, Reynolds stood motionless, searching for them. Elena's lungs began to burn, but she didn't dare breathe. Beside her, Collins was trembling with the effort of staying still. Finally, Reynolds shook his head and moved on. Elena waited another 10 minutes before allowing herself to exhale slowly. "Jesus Christ," Collins whispered. "How did he not see us?" Elena smiled beneath her face paint. "Because we weren't here." That evening, back in the barracks, Elena was cleaning her rifle when Reynolds approached her bunk. The other students immediately found reasons to be elsewhere. A private conversation with the chief instructor usually meant someone was going home. "Walk with me, Vasquez," Reynolds said. They walked outside into the Georgia evening. Reynolds lit a cigarette and studied Elena in the fading light. He was a small, wiry man with intelligent eyes and scars on his hands that spoke of years in combat zones. "You know what I think about women in combat roles?" he asked finally. Elena kept her expression neutral. "I'm sure you'll tell me, Chief," Reynolds chuckled. "Smart answer. What I think is that it doesn't matter what I think. What matters is whether you can do the job." He took a long drag from his cigarette. "And you can do the job, Vasquez. Better than most of the men I've trained." Elena felt a surge of pride, but kept her voice level. "Thank you, Chief. Don't thank me yet. I'm about to make your life much harder." Reynolds flicked his cigarette away. "You're being selected for advanced individual training. Urban environment specialization." Elena's pulse quickened. "Urban sniper." Training was the most elite program the Army offered, preparing snipers for operations in cities and built-up areas. Only the top 5% of sniper school graduates were even considered. "Why me, Chief?" Reynolds was quiet for a moment, considering. His answer: "Because you think differently than the others. Most snipers are hunters at heart. They like the woods, the stalking, the patience. You're all that, but you're also a problem solver. I watch you during exercises and you're not just following doctrine. You're thinking 3 moves ahead." He paused, then continued. "Urban environments require that kind of thinking. It's not enough to make the shot. You have to predict how the target will move, where backup will come from, how to escape after engagement. It's chess, not checkers." Elena nodded. She'd felt that analytical quality in herself, but hadn't been able to articulate it. "There's something else," Reynolds said. "You'll be working with experimental equipment. New optics, modified weapons, systems, enhanced ammunition. Some of it hasn't even been field tested yet. Am I being used as a test subject, Chief?" Reynolds smiled grimly. "We're all test subjects, Vasquez. The difference is that some of us get to test the cutting-edge stuff." His expression grew serious. "But there's a price. Urban sniper training has a higher washout rate than regular sniper school. And once you complete it, you'll be deployed to some of the nastiest places on Earth, places where conventional units can't operate." Elena didn't hesitate. "I accept, Reynolds." nodded as if he'd expected nothing else. Training starts Monday. Get your affairs in order, you'll be gone for 4 months. And Vasquez? Yes, Chief? Don't let them convince you that you don't belong there. You've earned this opportunity through skill, not politics. Remember that when things get difficult. That weekend, Elena called her mother to share the news. Maria Vasquez had been supportive of her daughter's military career, but Elena could hear the worry in her voice. 4 months in urban warfare training? Her mother asked. Mia, that sounds dangerous even for training. All the training is dangerous, Mom. That's how they prepare. U.S. for real combat. Your father used to say the same thing. Maria's voice grew soft with memory. He said the training was harder than the actual fighting sometimes. Elena smiled. Dad was right about that. He would be so proud of you, Elena. You know that, right? Elena felt her throat tighten. I hope so, Mom. I know so. You have his determination and his heart. Just promise me you'll be careful. I promise. But as Elena packed her gear for the next phase of training, she wondered if it was a promise she could keep. Urban warfare was different from anything she'd trained for so far. Closer quarters, more variables, higher stakes. She thought about Chief Reynolds's words, places where conventional units can't operate. Elena was beginning to understand that her path was leading toward assignments that most soldiers never faced. As she fell asleep that night, Elena dreamed of city streets and rooftops, of shots that had to be perfect because there would be no second chances. In her dream, she was calm and confident, moving through urban environments like she'd been born to them. She had no way of knowing that within 2 years, those dreams would become reality in ways she couldn't imagine. The skills she was about to learn would save dozens of lives and establish her reputation as one of the most effective snipers in military history. But first, she had to survive the training. The call came at 0347 hours. American convoy ambushed. Casualties mounting. Immediate sniper support required. Elena grabbed her gear and was running toward the helicopter pad before the duty officer finished briefing her team. This was her first combat deployment, her first real test of everything she'd learned in training. For 6 months, she'd been stationed at Phobe Liberty, mostly pulling guard duty and running patrol support missions. Real sniper work, the kind that made the difference between life and death, had been elusive until now. Reaper 6, this is Big Bird, crackled through her headset as the Black Hawk lifted off. We've got a supply convoy pinned down in Sector 77. Multiple casualties, enemy fire from elevated positions. Your job is to identify and eliminate sniper threats. Elena checked her equipment one final time. The M24 sniper weapon system felt solid and familiar in her hands, loaded with match-grade 7.62 mm ammunition. Her spotter, Sergeant Marcus Williams, was reviewing satellite photos of the area on a ruggedized tablet. Looks like we're going into the industrial district, Williams said over the noise of the rotors. Lots of multi-story buildings, plenty of positions for enemy snipers. Elena studied the photos, her mind automatically calculating angles and distances. 3 years of training had taught her to see urban environments as three-dimensional puzzles, where every window, rooftop, and alley could hide a threat. ETA 3 minutes, the pilot announced. Elena closed her eyes and ran through her pre-combat routine, a series of breathing exercises and mental preparations that helped her achieve the calm focus she'd need for precision shooting. By the time they reached the landing zone, her heartbeat had slowed to 60 beats per minute. The helicopter touched down in a cloud of dust and debris. Elena and Williams jumped out and immediately sought cover behind a concrete barrier. The sound of gunfire was loud and constant, punctuated by the deeper booms of RPG explosions. Convoy's about 4 blocks north, shouted Lieutenant Morrison, the ground commander who met them at the LZ. We've been trying to reach them for an hour, but there's at least 3 sniper positions covering the approaches. Elena scanned the surrounding buildings through her rifle scope. The enemy had chosen their positions well-elevated firing points. That offered good fields of fire while remaining difficult to assault with ground forces. "I need to get to higher ground," Elena told Morrison. "That water tower on the east side would give me overwatch on the whole area." Morrison shook his head. "Too exposed. We've already lost 2 men trying to reach elevated positions." Elena studied the water tower through her scope. It was 200 meters away, across open ground that was clearly being watched by enemy forces. But from that position, she'd be able to identify and engage the sniper positions that were pinning down. "The convoy." "Sir, with respect, those soldiers in the convoy are going to die if we don't neutralize those sniper positions. Ground assault would take too long and cost too many lives." Williams nodded in agreement. "She's right, LT. And if anyone can make that run, it's Reaper 6. Morrison looked at Elena for a long moment. She was young, untested in real combat, and about to volunteer for what looked like a suicide mission. But the sound of sustained gunfire from the convoy's direction made the decision for him. "Do it," he said. "We'll provide covering fire." Elena took a deep breath and prepared for the most dangerous sprint of her life. The water tower represented salvation for the trapped convoy, but reaching it would require crossing a kill zone where enemy snipers were actively hunting for targets. "On my mark," she said to Williams. 3.2.1. "Mark!" Elena exploded from cover, running in a zigzag pattern toward the water tower. Immediately, gunfire erupted from at least 2 positions, bullets striking the ground around her. Feet and whining past her head. She dove behind a burned-out car, rolled, and kept running. A sniper round shattered the rear window of the car just as she cleared it. Another round struck a concrete wall inches from her head, showering her with fragments. 50 meters to go. Elena's lungs burned, but she forced herself to keep moving. More gunfire, closer now. The enemy snipers were zeroing in on her position. 20-5 meters. A bullet tugged at her sleeve, so close she felt the heat of its passage. Elena reached the base of the water tower and immediately began climbing the ladder, moving as fast as possible while her rifle slung across her back. At the top, Elena took a moment to catch her breath, then began setting up her shooting position. Through her scope, she could see the convoy in the distance. 3 vehicles surrounded by enemy fighters, American soldiers taking cover wherever they could find it. "Williams, I'm in position," she reported through her radio. "Copy, Reaper 6. We count at least 3 sniper positions. Building at your 2 o'clock, rooftop at 10 o'clock, and what looks like a minaret at your 7 o'clock. Elena began systematically scanning each position. The key to counter-sniper work was patience enemy snipers would eventually reveal themselves through muzzle flash, scope glint, or movement. Then she saw him. A muzzle flash from the building at her 2 o'clock, followed by the distinctive crack of a high-powered rifle. Elena tracked the sound to a 3rd-floor window where she could just make out the outline of a rifle barrel. She adjusted her scope, controlled her breathing, and waited. Snipers often fired multiple rounds from the same position before relocating. If this one followed standard tactics, he'd fire again within the next 30 seconds. Elena counted silently. 28, 29, 30. The muzzle flash bloomed like a deadly flower in the window. Elena had been tracking the position, and her crosshairs were already aligned. She squeezed the trigger, and 800 meters away, the enemy sniper slumped forward and didn't move again. "Target down," she reported. 1 sniper eliminated. But there were still 2 more, and the convoy was taking increasing fire from ground positions. Elena began scanning for the 2nd sniper, the one Williams had spotted on a rooftop to her north. This one was more careful. Instead of muzzle flash, Elena caught a brief glint of sunlight reflecting off a rifle scope. The enemy sniper was using the same hunting technique she was, Looking for targets through optics. Elena smiled grimly and adjusted her position. Scope duels were about patience and precision. Whoever made the first mistake would die. For 10 minutes, both snipers remained motionless, each waiting for the other to reveal a weakness. Elena controlled her breathing and felt her heartbeat steady. This was what all her training had prepared her for, the moment when skill and nerve would determine who lived and who died. Then the enemy sniper made his mistake. Impatient or overconfident, he shifted position slightly, and Elena saw the movement through her scope. She tracked the motion, led the target, and fired. 850 meters away, the second sniper toppled from his rooftop position. Second target down, Elena reported. The gunfire from the convoy's position was already decreasing. With 2 sniper threats eliminated, American forces could begin maneuvering to relieve the pinned-down supply trucks, but Elena's work wasn't finished. The third sniper, positioned in the minaret, was still active. Through her scope, she could see muzzle flashes from the narrow window opening, and American soldiers were still taking casualties. The minaret presented a different challenge. It was further away, nearly 1,000 meters, and the window opening was small. Worse, the angle meant Elena would be shooting slightly upward, which required compensation for both distance and elevation. Elena made the necessary adjustments to her scope and settled into her shooting position. At this distance, factors like wind speed, humidity, and even the rotation of the earth would affect bullet trajectory. This wasn't just marksmanship, it was ballistic science. She watched through her scope as the enemy sniper fired again. The muzzle flash was brief, but it gave Elena the precise location within the window opening. She made a final adjustment to her aim point and prepared to take the shot. 1,000 meters. A difficult shot under the best conditions, nearly impossible in combat. Elena's instructors had trained her for this moment, but training was different from reality. This shot would save American lives or allow the killing to continue. Elena took a deep breath, released half of it, and felt the familiar calm settle over her. The world narrowed to just the crosshairs, the target, and the space between them. She squeezed the trigger. The bullet took nearly 2 seconds to reach its target. Elena watched through her scope as the round struck exactly where she'd aimed. The muzzle flashes from the minaret stopped immediately. Third target down, Elena reported. All sniper threats neutralized. Within minutes, American forces had broken through to the convoy. The supply trucks were able to complete their mission, and the wounded were evacuated to medical facilities. Elena's 3 shots had turned a potential massacre into a successful rescue operation. As she climbed down from the water tower, Elena realized that everything had changed. She was no longer a trainee or a probationary soldier. She was a combat veteran who had proven herself under fire. Williams met her at the bottom of the ladder with a grin on his face. Outstanding shooting, Reaper 6. 3 targets, 3 kills. Distances from 800 to 1,000 meters. Elena slung her rifle and began the walk back to the landing zone. She felt different, calmer, more confident. The weight of taking human lives was something she'd prepared for mentally, but the reality was both easier and harder than she'd expected. Easier, because in combat, the moral equations were clear. Kill or allow innocent people to die. Harder, because she now carried the knowledge that she was capable of taking life with surgical precision. But as Elena watched the rescued convoy disappear safely into the distance, she knew she'd found her calling. This was what she'd trained for, what all the doubt and struggle had been leading toward. She was no longer Elena Vasquez, the woman trying to prove she belonged in combat. She was Reaper 6, and she was just getting started. Elena's reputation had begun to precede her. Intelligence reports indicated that enemy forces had started calling her Al-Rami al-Amrakia, the American Reaper. There was even a bounty on her head, $50,000 for the sniper who could eliminate Reaper 6. She learned about the bounty from Captain Sarah Chun, the the intelligence officer who briefed her team before their latest mission. They've figured out your pattern, Chun explained, spreading photographs across the briefing table. 3 different insurgent cells have started coordinating specifically to hunt you. They know your effective range, your preferred positions, even your equipment signatures. Elena studied the photos. They showed various rooftops and buildings where she'd operated over the past months, marked with red circles indicating suspected enemy counter-sniper positions. "How many shooters are we talking about?" asked Williams, her spotter. "At least 5 confirmed, probably more," Chun replied. 2 are former Iraqi military snipers, trained by the same British instructors who taught some of our guys. Another is believed to be Chechen, probably fought in Grozny. The other 2 are unknowns, but they're good enough that local commanders are giving them prime positions. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Being hunted by professional snipers was a different kind of warfare, personal, intimate, and deadly. "There's something else," Chun continued. "Radio intercepts suggest they're planning something called Operation Bride. We think it's a coordinated effort to draw you out and eliminate you." Elena's jaw tightened. The word bride was clearly chosen to mock her gender, turning her into a target not just for her effectiveness, but for what she represented. "When and where?" she asked. "Unknown. But intelligence suggests it'll be soon. Probably during a high-value target engagement, where you'd be expected to provide overwatch." That opportunity came 2 days later. Elena was positioned on the roof of a partially collapsed apartment building, providing sniper support for a raid on a suspected bomb-making facility. Through her scope, she could see the assault team preparing to breach the target building 600 meters away. "Movement, near 3 o'clock, Williams whispered. Elena shifted her aim. Through her scope, she could see muzzle flash from a window in a building across the street from the target. An enemy sniper was engaging the assault team, forcing them to take cover. Elena acquired the target quickly, a shooter in a 3rd-story window, partially concealed but exposed enough for a clean shot. Range, 720 meters. Wind, light, variable from the southwest. She squeezed the trigger. The enemy sniper dropped immediately. "Target down," she reported, but instead of the usual satisfaction, Elena felt uneasy. The engagement had been too easy, the enemy sniper too exposed. Professional shooters didn't make mistakes like that unless contact rear. Williams shouted. Elena spun around to see muzzle flash from a building behind their position. A bullet cracked past her head, close enough that she felt the shock wave. The first sniper had been bait, positioned to draw her attention while the real threat maneuvered into position. Elena rolled left, just as another round struck the concrete where she'd been lying. Williams was already moving, scrambling toward better cover while calling for support on the radio. "This is Reaper 6, we're taking sniper fire from multiple positions. Request immediate assistance." Elena found cover behind an air conditioning unit and began scanning for targets. Through her scope, she could see at least 2 muzzle flashes from different buildings. The enemy had set up a crossfire, trapping her team on the rooftop. This was Operation Bride, and she'd walked right into it. "Building at your 10 o'clock 4th floor, Williams called out. "I've got eyes on the shooter." Elena swung her rifle toward the position. She could see the sniper clearly now, a man in military fatigues with professional equipment. As she watched, he fired again, the bullet striking inches from Williams's position. Elena didn't hesitate. She acquired the target, controlled her breathing, and fired. At 850 meters, with incoming fire disrupting her concentration, it was one of the most difficult shots she'd ever attempted. The enemy sniper slumped forward and didn't move, but there were still more shooters out there. Elena could hear bullets impacting around their position from at least 2 other directions. The enemy had planned this carefully, positioning multiple snipers to ensure that eliminating one wouldn't stop the attack. Apache inbound, 2 minutes. Out, Williams reported. Elena smiled grimly. Attack helicopter support would even the odds considerably. But 2 minutes was a long time. When enemy snipers were trying to kill you, she began systematically searching for the remaining shooters, using her scope to scan windows and rooftops. The key was patience, even under fire. Rushing would only get her killed. A glint of sunlight off a rifle scope caught her attention. Building to the northeast, approximately 900 meters away. As Elena watched, she saw muzzle flash from that position. The sniper was good. He was firing from deep within a room, making himself difficult to spot while maintaining a clear field of fire. Elena would have to wait for him to expose himself more fully. Williams, can you spot the northeast position? Negative, too much. Shadow. But I've got movement on the building to our south. Elena quickly shifted her aim. Williams was right. She could see a figure moving between windows, trying to get a better angle on their position. This sniper was less patient than the others, and his movement would be his downfall. Elena tracked the target as he moved from one window to another. As he settled into his new position, she fired. The 7.62 millimeters round covered the distance in less than a second, striking the enemy sniper center mass. Another one down, she reported. The incoming fire slackened but didn't stop. At least one sniper was still active, probably the careful one in the northeast building. Elena returned her attention to that position, waiting for any sign of movement. Then, she heard the distinctive whop-whop of approaching helicopters. The Apache attack helicopters were arriving, and with them, the balance of power would shift dramatically. "This is Paladin 1-6, crackled through Elena's radio. "We have eyes on your position. Designate targets." Elena quickly provided grid coordinates for the remaining sniper positions. Within minutes, the Apache's 30mm chain gun was systematically destroying every building that had harbored enemy shooters. When the firing stopped, Elena and Williams carefully made their way down from the rooftop. The assault team had successfully completed their raid while Elena dealt with the sniper threat, recovering bomb-making materials and capturing 2 high-value targets. But as Elena walked through the ruins of the buildings where her enemies had hidden, she felt a profound shift in her perspective. This hadn't been a standard engagement, it had been personal. The enemy wasn't just fighting American forces. They were specifically hunting her. Captain Chun met them at the extraction point. With updated intelligence, radio intercepts confirm it was Operation Bride, she reported. 5 enemy snipers total, all eliminated. But Elena, there's something else. Elena waited. Intelligence suggests this was just the first attempt. There are indications that enemy forces are bringing in more specialized shooters, possibly foreign. Fighters with advanced training, Elena nodded. She'd known this day would come eventually. Her effectiveness had made her a target, and the enemy was escalating their response accordingly. "Let them come," she said quietly. "I'll be ready." But as Elena cleaned her rifle that evening, she thought about the implications of what had happened. The war was becoming more personal, more deadly. Enemy forces were adapting to her tactics, learning from her successes. The hunt was on, and Elena was both predator and prey. Elena was breaking down her rifle when Sergeant First Class David Rodriguez approached her position. Rodriguez was new to the unit, a veteran of Afghanistan who'd specifically requested transfer to work with the famous Reaper 6. His skepticism about female soldiers was barely concealed behind military courtesy. "Vasquez," he said, settling into the dirt beside her. "Mind if I ask you something?" Elena continued cleaning her rifle barrel, not looking up. "Shoot. How many of your kills were actually lucky shots?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Elena could feel Williams tense beside her, ready to defend his partner, but she held up a hand to stop him. "Define lucky," she said calmly. Rodriguez leaned forward. his voice dropping to a conversational tone. "Come on. Half the guys in the unit think your reputation is media hype. Female sniper makes for good press, you know. Makes the brass look progressive." Elena finally looked up, meeting Rodriguez's gaze steadily. "You want to know if I'm for real?" "Yeah, I do." Elena set down her rifle and stood up, dusting off her hands. "Fair enough. But I've got a better idea than talking about it." 20 minutes later, Elena, Rodriguez, Williams, and half the sniper section were gathered at the improvised shooting range outside FOB Spiker. Elena had set up a series of targets at various distances: 500, 800, 1,000, and 1,200 meters. "Here's the deal," Elena announced. "Rodriguez thinks my reputation is luck in politics. I think Rodriguez needs an education. So we're going to settle this professionally." The other soldiers formed a loose circle around the shooting positions. Word had spread quickly through the base, and even some officers had come to watch the impromptu demonstration. "Standard sniper competition rules," Elena continued. 5 rounds at each distance, scored on accuracy and time. Best out of 4. Distances wins. Rodriguez smiled confidently. He was a good shooter, with confirmed kills in Afghanistan and consistent high scores in qualification exercises. "What does the winner get?" he asked. Elena considered the question. "Winner gets respect. Loser buys beer for the section when we get back to base." They started at 500 meters, both shooters lying prone behind their rifles. Elena was using her standard M24, while Rodriguez had brought his own customized weapon system. "Shooters ready?" called Williams, acting as range safety officer. Both snipers gave thumbs up. "Commence firing." Elena settled into her shooting position, feeling the familiar calm descend over her. Through her scope, the target looked large and clear at 500 meters. She controlled her breathing, found her natural respiratory pause, and squeezed the trigger. 5 shots in rapid succession, each round striking within the target's center ring. Elena's group could have been covered by a quarter. Rodriguez was good. His shots were all in the scoring rings, with 4 in the center, but Elena's group was noticeably tighter. "Advantage Vasquez," Williams announced. They moved to 800 meters. At this distance, wind became a significant factor, and the targets were much smaller through the scope. Elena studied the grass between her position and the target, reading the wind patterns. Light breeze from the southwest, variable between 5 and 8 miles per hour. Elena made the appropriate adjustments to her scope and settled into position. Again, 5 rapid shots. Through her spotting scope, Williams could see that all 5 rounds had struck within a 6-inch circle at the target's center. Rodriguez's group was wider, with 1 shot just outside the center ring. He was clearly feeling the pressure now, his confidence shaken by Elena's consistent precision. At 1,000 meters, the targets were barely visible to the naked eye. This was where superior equipment and training separated professional snipers from merely good shooters. Elena felt completely relaxed now, in the zone that competitive shooters called the flow state. Each shot felt inevitable, predetermined by physics and training. She was no longer thinking about Rodriguez or the watching soldiers. There's only the target and the calculations needed to reach it. 5 more perfect shots. This time, Williams had to use high-powered optics to confirm that Elena had actually hit the target. 5 times her group was so tight that the bullet holes overlapped. "Jesus Christ," someone whispered from the crowd of observers. Rodriguez was struggling now. At 1,000 meters, even small errors in wind reading or trigger control became magnified. His group was respectable for most shooters, but it looked sloppy compared to Elena's surgical precision. The final distance was 1,200 meters, approaching the effective limit of their equipment. At this range, factors like humidity, temperature, and even the Earth's rotation affected bullet trajectory. Elena made her calculations carefully, adjusting for all known variables. She'd made shots at this distance in combat, but not often, and never under the pressure of public scrutiny. Through her scope, the target was a tiny speck against the desert background. Elena controlled her breathing, felt her heartbeat slow to its minimum rate, and began her trigger squeeze. The first shot felt perfect the moment it left the barrel. Through the spotting scope, Williams confirmed a center hit. 4 more shots, each one requiring the same level of concentration and precision. When Elena finished, her group at 1,200 meters measured less than 8 inches. Extraordinary accuracy at that distance. Rodriguez had managed only 3 hits out of 5 shots, with his group measuring over 2 feet. Competition complete, Williams announced. Winner, Reaper 6. The gathered soldiers erupted in cheers and applause. Elena stood up, accepted congratulations from several teammates, then walked over to Rodriguez. "Good shooting," she said, extending her hand. Rodriguez stared at her for a moment, then shook her hand firmly. "Damn, Vasquez, I owe you an apology and a lot of beer." Elena smiled. "The apology is enough, but I'll still take the beer." From that day forward, Rodriguez became one of Elena's strongest supporters in the unit. But more importantly, word of the shooting demonstration spread throughout the base, and eventually to other units across Iraq. The story grew in the telling, as military stories always did. By the time it reached stateside, Elena had supposedly hit targets at 2,000 meters, while blindfolded in a sandstorm. But the core truth remained. Reaper 6 was the real deal. 3 weeks later, Elena's reputation was put to the test in a way that no shooting demonstration could replicate. Her team was providing overwatch for a convoy moving through a particularly dangerous stretch of road known as IED Alley. Intelligence suggested that insurgents had prepared multiple ambush positions along the route, including at least 2 sniper teams. Elena was positioned on a hill overlooking the road, with Williams spotting and Rodriguez providing security for their position. The convoy was still 15 minutes out, but Elena was already scanning potential firing positions. "Movement in the village," Williams reported. "Building with the blue door, 2nd floor." Elena swung her rifle toward the position. Through her scope, she could see the barrel of a rifle protruding from a window. The enemy sniper was already in position, waiting for the convoy. "Range to target?" 800 meters, Williams replied. Elena settled into her shooting position, but before she could fire, Rodriguez grabbed her arm. "Wait," he whispered urgently. "Look at the roof of the building next to it." Elena shifted her scope. On the adjacent rooftop, barely visible, she could see another sniper setting up his position. The 2 enemy shooters were coordinated, positioned to create a crossfire on the convoy. "And there's a 3rd one," Williams added, pointing to a position 400 meters south of the other 2. Elena felt her pulse quicken. 3 enemy snipers in coordinated positions was a significant threat. Her team would need to eliminate all 3 quickly to prevent them from engaging the convoy. "Rodriguez can you handle the rooftop position?" Elena asked. Rodriguez nodded, settling behind his own rifle. 850 meters, I've got him." "Williams, stay on the blue door building. I'll take the southern position." Elena acquired her target through the scope. The southern sniper was the most distant at 950 meters, and he was well concealed behind a low wall. She could see only the top of his head and part of his rifle. "Convoy is 5 minutes out," crackled through their radio. Elena made her final adjustments for wind and distance. At 950 meters, the bullet would take nearly 2 seconds to reach the target, and even a slight movement could cause a miss. "On my mark," Elena whispered. 3.2.1. Mark. 3 rifles fired simultaneously. Elena's target dropped immediately, struck in the head by her precisely placed shot. Williams's target also went down, eliminated by Rodriguez's shot. To center mass. but Williams was struggling with his target in the Blue Door building. The enemy sniper had pulled back into the room after the first shots, making himself nearly impossible to see. "I can't get a clear shot," Williams reported. Alina quickly shifted her rifle toward the Blue Door building. She could see muzzle flash from deep within the room, but the sniper himself remained hidden in shadows. The convoy was now visible in the distance, approaching the kill zone. If the remaining sniper wasn't eliminated quickly, American soldiers would die. Alina studied the building through her scope, looking for any angle that might give her a shot. The window opening was narrow, and the enemy sniper was firing from well back in the room. Then she had an idea. Instead of trying to hit the sniper directly, she could eliminate his firing position. Alina aimed at the window frame itself, specifically at the concrete lintel above the opening. A well-placed shot might bring down enough debris to bury the sniper or force him to relocate. She adjusted her aim point and fired. The high-velocity round struck the concrete precisely where she'd aimed, causing a small avalanche of debris to fall into the room. The muzzle flashes stopped immediately. "Target neutralized," Alina reported. The convoy passed through the area without incident, reaching its destination safely. 3 enemy snipers had been eliminated before they could fire a single shot at American forces. As Alina's team prepared to leave their position, Rodriguez approached her with a serious expression. "Vasquez, I need to tell you something," he said. Alina waited. "I've been in combat for 6 years, worked with some of the best shooters in the Army. What you just did coordinating a 3-sniper engagement at those distances, that's not just good shooting, that's tactical brilliance." Alina felt a warm pride but kept her voice level. "We're a team, Rodriguez. All of us." "No, that's not what I mean." Rodriguez paused, choosing his words carefully. "You're not just a good sniper who happens to be female. You're one of the best tactical snipers I've ever seen, period. Gender doesn't enter into it." Alina smiled. "Thanks, Rodriguez. That means a lot." But as they walked back to the extraction point, Alina realized that something fundamental had changed in her relationship with the unit. She was no longer the woman trying to prove she belonged. She was the sniper that other snipers looked up to. The Brotherhood of Warriors had accepted her not as an exception or a novelty, but as one of their own. The intelligence briefing lasted 3 hours, and by the end of it, Alina understood why they'd called in specialists from 3 different agencies. The target was Abu Nasir al-Shami, a bomb maker whose devices had killed over 200 coalition soldiers in the past year. "He's careful," explained Major Patricia Hayes, the intelligence officer leading the briefing. "Travels with minimal security, changes locations frequently, never stays in one place for more than 6 hours." Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Alina studied the photographs spread across the table. Al-Shami was a thin man in his 40s, unremarkable except for the massive intelligence file documenting his lethal expertise. "What's the opportunity?" Alina asked. Hayes pointed to an aerial photograph of a small village. "Tomorrow morning, Al-Shami is meeting with 3 other cell leaders at this compound. Intelligence suggests they're planning a major operation, possibly targeting the green zone." Alina examined the photo more closely. The compound was isolated, surrounded by open ground, with good sight lines from several directions. "Range to target from optimal positions?" "That's the problem," Hayes replied. "Closest position with adequate concealment is here." She pointed to a ridgeline on the photo. 1,400 meters from the compound. Alina felt her pulse quicken. 1,400 meters was an extraordinary distance for a sniper shot, pushing the absolute limits of equipment and human capability. She'd never attempted a shot beyond 1,200 meters in combat. "Sir, "That's beyond the effective range of standard sniper systems," said Sergeant Williams. Hayes nodded. "Which is why we're bringing in experimental equipment." She gestured to a technician, who wheeled in a case containing a rifle Elena had never seen before. "Meet the XM201, enhanced sniper rifle," the technician explained. "Chambered in .300 Winchester Magnum, with a modified optic system and specialized ammunition. Effective range extends to 1,600 meters under optimal conditions." Elena examined the weapon carefully. It was heavier than her usual M24, with a longer barrel and a massive scope that looked more like a telescope than traditional optics. "What's the catch?" she asked. "The rifle is still in testing phase," Hayes admitted. "You'd be the first sniper to use it in combat conditions. Also, at 1,400 meters, environmental factors become critical. Wind, humidity, temperature, even atmospheric pressure will affect bullet trajectory." Elena hefted the rifle, getting a feel for its weight and balance. It felt solid and well-engineered, but unfamiliar. "How much time do I have to familiarize myself with the system?" 8 hours, Hayes replied. "There's a range set up at the firebase where you can practice with the new equipment." Elena spent the next 8 hours learning the capabilities and limitations of the XM2010. The rifle was remarkably accurate, but the .300 Winchester Magnum cartridge behaved differently from the 7.62 mm rounds she was accustomed to. More challenging was the advanced optic system, which provided multiple reticle options and integrated ballistic calculations. Elena had to learn an entirely new way of ranging targets and compensating for environmental factors. By the time she finished her practice session, Elena had managed consistent hits at 1,000 meters with the new system. 1,400 meters would still be a stretch, but it was within the realm of possibility. The mission launched at 0300 hours. Elena's team was inserted by helicopter into a rocky ridgeline that overlooked the target compound. They had 6 hours to get into position and wait for Al-Shami's arrival. The climbing was treacherous in the darkness, made worse by the additional weight of the experimental rifle and its specialized ammunition. Elena's team included Williams as her spotter, Rodriguez as security, and specialist Janet Kim, a weather technician whose job was to provide real-time environmental data. They reached their position just as the sun was rising, revealing a commanding view of the valley below. Through her new scope, Elena could see the target compound clearly, a cluster of low buildings surrounded by a concrete wall. "Range to target?" Elena asked. Williams used a laser rangefinder to confirm the distance. 1,430 meters, he reported. Elena felt her stomach tighten. The extra 30 meters put the shot at the very edge of what was possible, even with the experimental rifle. "Environmental conditions?" she asked Kim. Kim consulted her instruments. "Temperature, 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity, 34%. Barometric pressure, 29.87 inches. Wind, variable from the southwest, 5 to 12 miles per hour." Elena began making calculations for the shot, using both the rifle's integrated ballistics computer and her own experience. At 1,430 meters, the bullet would drop nearly 20 feet from the line of sight. Wind drift could be as much as 3 feet in either direction. More concerning was the bullet's flight time, nearly 3 seconds from trigger pull to impact. If the target moved during that time, the shot would miss. "Contact," Williams whispered. Suddenly, multiple vehicles approaching the compound. Elena swung her rifle toward the approaching convoy. Through her scope, she could see 3 civilian vehicles kicking up dust clouds as they drove toward the compound. The vehicles pulled up to the compound's main gate, and Elena watched as several men emerged. Through her powerful optics, she could clearly see their faces. "Target identified," Williams confirmed, consulting a photograph. "Abu Nazir al-Shami, exiting the lead vehicle. Elena tracked the target through her scope as he walked toward the compound's main building. Al-Shami was moving casually, unaware that he was being watched from nearly a mile away. "Environmental update," Elena requested. "Wind increasing," Kim reported. "Now 8 to 15 miles per hour, still from southwest." Elena made adjustments to her scope, compensating for the increased wind speed. At 1,430 meters, even small errors in wind calculation could cause significant misses. Al-Shami disappeared into the building. Elena would have to wait for him to emerge, possibly for hours. Long-range sniping was as much about patience as it was about marksmanship. 2 hours passed. Elena remained motionless behind her rifle, occasionally checking her sight picture, but mostly just waiting. Williams and Rodriguez took turns monitoring the compound through binoculars. "Movement," Rodriguez reported suddenly. "Target emerging." From the building, Elena reacquired Al-Shami through her scope. He was walking across the compound's central courtyard, heading toward one of the vehicles. "Range confirmation," Elena requested. 1,430 meters, Williams replied. Elena settled into her final shooting position, feeling her heartbeat slow to its minimum rate. Through her scope, Al-Shami looked tiny, a small figure moving across the crosshairs. "Wind?" Elena whispered. 10 miles per hour southwest, Kim replied. Elena made her final scope adjustments and began controlling her breathing. The shot would require absolute precision. Any error would mean Al-Shami would escape to kill more coalition soldiers. Through her scope, Elena watched as Al-Shami stopped beside one of the vehicles and began talking to another man. This was her opportunity. The target was stationary, clearly visible, and in the open. Elena found her natural respiratory pause and began applying pressure to the trigger. The crosshairs were centered on Al-Shami's chest, with appropriate leads for wind and distance. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle's recoil was sharp and immediate, but Elena maintained her sight picture, watching through the scope as the bullet traveled toward its target. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. Al-Shami suddenly staggered and fell. Even at 1,430 meters, Elena could see that her shot had struck home. "Target down," Williams confirmed through his spotting scope. The compound immediately erupted in chaos. Men were running in all directions, seeking cover from a threat they couldn't locate. Several fighters began firing randomly into the hills, but they were shooting at positions over a mile from Elena's actual location. Elena quickly packed her equipment, while Williams and Rodriguez provided security. The experimental rifle had performed flawlessly, but they needed to extract before enemy forces could organize a search. As they began their movement to the extraction point, Elena felt a mixture of satisfaction and amazement. She'd just made the longest confirmed sniper kill in military history, a shot that pushed the boundaries of what was humanly possible. The significance of the achievement wouldn't become clear until much later. Elena's 1,430-meter shot would be studied by military analysts, featured in sniper training programs, and remembered as a pivotal moment in the evolution of long-range precision shooting. But in the immediate aftermath, as Elena's team moved carefully through the rocky terrain toward their pickup point, she was already thinking about the next mission. Al-Shami was dead, but there were other targets, other threats to American soldiers. The experimental rifle would be adopted by elite sniper units, partly based on Elena's combat evaluation. The tactics she developed for extreme-range shooting would become standard doctrine. Elena Vasquez, the woman who'd once been told that females couldn't be snipers, had just redefined what was possible in precision warfare. The shot that traveled 1,430 meters had taken 3 seconds to reach its target, but its impact would last for generations. They called him the Ghost because no one had ever seen him and lived to describe him. Over the past 6 months, Coalition forces had lost 14 snipers to a single shooter who operated with supernatural patience and surgical precision. Elena studied the intelligence files, spread across the conference table, each one documenting another dead American soldier. The enemy sniper's pattern was consistent: single shots at extreme range, always lethal, always followed by clean escapes that left no trace. "We think he's former Republican Guard," said Colonel Marcus Webb, the task force commander. "Possibly trained by European instructors before the invasion. His equipment suggests foreign support, probably Russian or German optics." Elena examined photographs of the kill sites. The enemy sniper favored positions that most shooters would consider impossible: extreme angles, minimal concealment, ranges that pushed the limits of equipment capability. "What's his effective range?" Elena asked. "Furthest confirmed kill was at 1,200 meters, Webb replied. But witnesses report muzzle flashes from positions as far as 1,500 meters out. Elena felt a chill of professional respect mixed with dread. She was looking at the work of a master sniper, someone whose skills matched or exceeded her own. Why hasn't he been eliminated? "Because every time we send someone after him, they end up dead," Webb said grimly. "Last week, we lost 2 sniper teams in a single day. Both were experienced operators with multiple combat tours." Elena studied the tactical maps, noting the locations where the Ghost had operated. His movements followed no predictable pattern. But there was an underlying logic to his positioning that spoke of advanced tactical training. "Sir, I'd like to volunteer for the counter-sniper mission," Elena said. Webb shook his head immediately. "Negative, Vasquez. You're too valuable to risk on what might be a suicide mission. With respect, sir, this Ghost is systematically eliminating our sniper capabilities. If he's not stopped, he'll keep killing our people." Elena paused. "And I think I might be the only shooter good enough to match him." Webb studied Elena's face for a long moment. Her reputation had grown exponentially over the past 2 years: 47 confirmed kills, including shots at ranges that other snipers considered impossible. "What makes you think you can succeed where others have failed?" Elena pointed to the intelligence files. "Every team that's gone after him has tried to hunt him conventionally. They've looked for him in obvious positions, used standard search patterns. This Ghost is too good for conventional tactics. What do you propose?" "I want to think like him, not hunt him. Study his techniques, understand his psychology. Become enough like him that I can predict his next move." Webb was quiet for several minutes, considering the proposal. Finally, he nodded. "You'll have 1 week to study the intelligence files and develop your approach. Then you'll have carte blanche to set up your own operation. But Vasquez?" "Yes, sir?" "If you don't come back from this, you'll be the 15th sniper we've lost to this guy. Make sure that doesn't happen." Elena spent the next week immersing herself in everything known about the Ghost. She studied ballistics reports, examined crime scene photographs, and interviewed survivors of his attacks. Gradually, a profile emerged. The Ghost was patient beyond measure, sometimes remaining motionless for days to achieve the perfect shot. He favored positions that others would consider too risky, using the element of surprise to overcome tactical disadvantages. Most importantly, he seemed to understand American tactics better than most American soldiers. He anticipated standard responses, predicted conventional movements, and positioned himself to exploit predictable behaviors. Elena realized that beating the Ghost would require abandoning conventional sniper doctrine. She would have to become something entirely new, a hybrid of American precision and unconventional thinking. Her opportunity came during a routine patrol in Fallujah's industrial district. Intel suggested that insurgent leaders were meeting in an abandoned factory, requiring sniper overwatch for the assault team. Elena positioned herself in an unconventional location, the top floor of a partially destroyed mosque that most snipers would avoid for cultural and tactical reasons. But the position offered clear sight lines to the target building while remaining completely unexpected. Through her scope, Alina watched as the assault team prepared for their breach. Everything appeared normal until she noticed something that made her blood run cold. In a building 800 meters away, she caught a brief glint of reflected light. For just an instant, sunlight had reflected off a rifle scope in a fourth-floor window. The ghost was here, watching the same operation, waiting for American snipers to reveal themselves. Alina remained motionless, studying the building where she'd seen the reflection. The position was tactically perfect, elevated, concealed, with clear sightlines to multiple overwatch positions. For 20 minutes, neither sniper moved. Alina knew that the ghost was scanning for targets, just as she was scanning for him. This was the ultimate game of patience, with the first one to reveal their position likely to die. Then Alina saw him. A shadow moved behind the window where she'd seen the scope reflection. It was barely perceptible, but Alina's trained eye caught the subtle shift. The ghost was adjusting his position, probably tracking an American soldier through his scope. Alina realized with crystal clarity that the ghost was about to kill someone. In the next few seconds, another American sniper would die unless she acted. She acquired the target through her scope, but the shot was extraordinarily difficult. Range, 847 meters. Target partially concealed behind window glass and interior. Shadows. Angle requiring compensation for elevation difference. Alina controlled her breathing and felt her heartbeat slow. Through her scope, she could see just enough of the ghost silhouette to aim at his center mass. She squeezed the trigger. The .300 Winchester Magnum round crossed the distance in less than 2 seconds. Alina watched through her scope as the window glass exploded and the shadow behind it disappeared. For a moment, there was no response from the building. Then Alina saw muzzle flash from a different window. The ghost was returning fire, apparently wounded but still active. Alina rolled away from her position, just as a bullet struck the concrete where her head had been. The ghost was wounded but not dead, and now he knew exactly where she was. Alina low-crawled to a new position within the mosque, her mind racing. The ghost had survived her shot and was now actively hunting her. This had become personal too. Master snipers locked in a deadly duel across the rooftops of Fallujah. She keyed her radio. "All stations, this is Reaper 6. I'm engaged with the target sniper. Do not approach the area, this is now a counter-sniper operation." Through a different window, Alina searched for the ghost's new position. He would have moved after her shot, but wounded snipers often didn't move far. She scanned the building methodically, looking for any sign of movement. A muzzle flash erupted from a window 2 floors down from his original position. The ghost was shooting at something, probably trying to draw Alina into revealing herself. Again, Alina held her position and waited. Patience was the sniper's greatest weapon, and she had learned it from the best instructors in the world. 20 minutes passed in absolute silence. Then Alina caught what she was looking for, a brief reflection off the ghost's scope as he scanned for targets. He was in a ground floor window now, using the building's shadows for concealment. This time, Alina took extra care with her shot placement. Range, 823 meters, slight crosswind from the east. Target partially concealed but visible enough for a precision shot to center mass. Alina controlled her breathing, found her natural respiratory pause, and squeezed the trigger. The shot was perfect. Through her scope, Alina saw the ghost slump forward and remain motionless. After 30 seconds with no movement, she was confident the threat had been eliminated. "This is Reaper 6, she radioed. "Target neutralized. The ghost is down." The assault team completed their mission successfully, and Alina's shot was later confirmed by ground forces who found the enemy sniper's body, along with a sophisticated rifle setup that included Russian optics and specialized ammunition. But Alina felt no satisfaction in the kill. The ghost had been a worthy adversary, a fellow professional who had simply chosen the wrong side. His death felt different from her other kills, more personal, more significant. As Alina packed her equipment, she realized that she had just passed a milestone. The ghost had been her 60th confirmed kill, making her one of the most successful snipers in military history. But numbers were just statistics. What mattered was that American soldiers would go home alive because of her work. Alina sat in the base psychologist's office, staring at her hands. Dr. Sarah Martinez had kind eyes and a patient manner, but Alina wasn't sure why she was here. "How are you sleeping?" Dr. Martinez asked. "Fine," Alina lied. The truth was that she hadn't slept through the night in months. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw faces, some of the men she'd killed, others of American soldiers she'd failed to save. "Alina, your commanding officer is concerned about you. Your team members report that you've become ... distant." Alina shifted uncomfortably. "I do my job. My performance hasn't declined." "No, your marksmanship remains exceptional. But war isn't just about technical performance. It's about the human cost of what we do." Dr. Martinez leaned forward. "You've had 127 confirmed kills over 4 combat tours. That's an extraordinary number, even for someone with your skills. How do you process that?" Alina was quiet for a long time. Finally she spoke. "Each one of those kills saved American lives. Every shot I didn't take might have meant one of our soldiers didn't come home. I understand the tactical necessity, but I'm asking about the emotional impact on you personally." Alina felt anger flare in her chest. "I don't have the luxury of emotional impact, doctor. While I'm feeling sorry for myself, there are soldiers out there who need me to do my job." Alina, recognizing the psychological toll of combat doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. That night, Alina lay in her bunk staring at the ceiling. In the bed next to her, Specialist Amy Chun, a new sniper who'd requested Alina as her mentor, breathed quietly in sleep. Alina thought about Dr. Martinez's words. She'd spent so many years focusing on being the perfect soldier that she'd forgotten how to be a person. The weight of 127 kills was starting to feel unbearable, but then she thought about the alternative. Without her skills, how many American soldiers would have died? How many young men and women would never see their families again? Alina made a decision. She would carry the weight because someone had to. That was the price of being exceptional, the burden of knowing that her abilities meant the difference between life and death for others. The next morning, Alina resumed her duties. But something had changed. She began taking the more active role in mentoring younger snipers, sharing not just technical knowledge, but the psychological tools needed to survive in combat. "The hardest part isn't making the shot," she told Chun during a training session. "It's living with it afterward. You have to find a way to carry the weight without letting it destroy you." Chun nodded seriously. "How do you do it?" Alina considered. "The question. I remember why I'm here. Every person I eliminate is someone who is trying to kill American soldiers. I'm not taking lives, I'm saving them." It was a rationalization, Alina knew, but it was also the truth. In the moral complexity of warfare, she had chosen to be the one who made the hard decisions so that others didn't have to. Alina stood before 36 of the Army's most promising marksmen, but only 12 would complete the advanced sniper program. More importantly, 6 of the candidates were women, the first female snipers to attempt the elite course. "My name is Sergeant First Class Elena Vasquez," she announced. "You may have heard stories about me. Forget them. What matters is what you learn here and how you apply it in combat." She gestured to the shooting range behind her. "For the next 8 weeks, you'll learn skills that most people consider impossible. You'll make shots at distances that defy common sense. You'll operate alone in hostile territory for days at a time. Most of you will fail." Alina paused, studying the faces of her students. She saw determination, fear, confidence, and doubt, the same emotions she'd felt during her own training years ago. But for those who succeed, you'll join a brotherhood that transcends gender, race, or background. You'll be united by one thing: the ability to make precision shots that save American lives. Over the following weeks, Elena pushed her students harder than she'd ever been pushed. She taught them not just marksmanship, but the mental discipline required for long-range shooting, the patience needed for surveillance, and the emotional control necessary to kill when required. Private First Class Jessica Martinez was Elena's most promising female student. She had natural shooting ability and the mental toughness needed for sniper work, but she struggled with self-doubt. "I keep thinking about what people will say," Martinez confided during a private training session. "That I only made it through because they needed female graduates." Elena nodded. "I had the same thoughts during my training." "You want to know what I learned?" Martinez waited. "Other people's opinions don't matter when lives are on the line. When you're lying behind a rifle at 1,000 meters, deciding whether to take a shot that could save a squad of infantry, nobody cares about your gender. They care about your competence." Elena set up a target at 800 meters. "Show me what you can do." Martinez settled into position behind her rifle. Elena watched as the young woman controlled her breathing, found her sight picture, and squeezed the trigger with textbook precision. The shot was perfect dead. Sent her at 800 meters. "Outstanding," Elena said. "Now forget about what anyone else thinks and focus on becoming the best sniper you can be." By the end of the course, 4 women had successfully completed the program, including Martinez. Elena felt a profound pride watching them graduate, knowing that she had helped open doors that would remain open for future generations. During the graduation ceremony, Elena was approached by General Patricia Hayes, the same intelligence officer who had briefed her on the Al-Shami mission years earlier. "Congratulations, Vasquez. Your students performed exceptionally." "Thank you, General. They earned their success," Hayes smiled. "Walk with me. I have a proposition for you." They walked across the base in comfortable silence until Hayes stopped at an overlook that provided a view of the training ranges where Elena had first learned to shoot. "Elena, you've become more than just an exceptional sniper. You've become a symbol of what's possible when we judge people by their abilities rather than their demographics." Elena nodded but remained quiet. "I want to offer you a position developing advanced sniper doctrine. You'd be responsible for training instructors, developing new techniques, and ensuring that the next generation of snipers has the best possible preparation." Elena considered the offer. It would mean leaving combat operations, but it would also allow her to impact far more soldiers than she could reach individually. "There's something else," Hayes continued. "We're establishing a new program, specifically for training female snipers. We want you to lead it." Elena felt her pulse quicken. This was an opportunity to ensure that women like Jessica Martinez would have the support and training they needed to succeed. "When would I start?" Elena asked. "Immediately. But there's one condition." Hayes's expression grew serious. "You'd need to extend your enlistment for at least 4 years. This program needs stability and continuity." Elena thought about her mother, who had been asking when she planned to leave the military and settle down. She thought about the civilian life she'd been postponing for years. Then she thought about the young women she'd just trained, and the hundreds more who would follow in their footsteps. "I accept," Elena said. Elena hadn't planned to return to combat, but when intelligence identified Khalil al-Masri as operating in Afghanistan's Kunar province, the mission became personal. Al-Masri was the bomb maker responsible for the IED that had killed Elena's brother Miguel 5 years earlier. She stood in the briefing room at Bagram Air Base, studying satellite photos of the remote compound where al-Masri was believed to be hiding. At 35, Elena was older than most of the operators around her, but her skills had only improved with experience. "The target is heavily defended," explained Colonel David Thompson, the mission commander. "At least 20 fighters, multiple weapons positions, and sophisticated early warning systems." Elena examined the tactical maps. The compound was built into a mountainside, with natural defensive advantages that made a direct assault extremely costly. "What about sniper support?" Elena asked. Thompson pointed to a ridgeline overlooking the compound. "Closest position with adequate sight lines is here 1,600 meters from the target building. It's beyond the effective range of standard equipment." Elena smiled grimly. "Good thing I don't use standard equipment." She'd brought her customized XM2010, now modified with experimental optics and loaded with specialized ammunition designed for extreme-range shooting. In the 3 years since leaving active combat, Elena had continued developing long-range shooting techniques. "Vasquez, I have to ask, are you sure you want to do this? You could observe and direct the assault team instead of taking the shot." "Yourself." Elena shook her head. "Al-Masri killed my brother. This one's personal." The mission launched at midnight. Elena's team now, including Sergeant Martinez as her spotter and 2 security specialists, was inserted by helicopter onto the ridge line overlooking the target compound. They had 6 hours to get into position before the assault team began their diversionary attack. Elena's job was to eliminate Al-Masri during the confusion, preventing him from escaping as he had so many times before. The climb was brutal, made worse by the thin air at 8,000 feet altitude. Elena's custom rifle weighed nearly 30 pounds. With its advanced optics and bipod system, but she carried it without complaint. They reached their position just as dawn was breaking over the Afghan mountains. Through her scope, Elena could see the compound clearly, a cluster of stone buildings built into the mountainside, connected by narrow walkways and defensive walls. "Range to target building?" Elena asked. Martinez used a laser rangefinder to confirm the distance. 1,612 meters, she reported. Elena felt her pulse quicken. The shot would be at the very edge of what was possible, even with her advanced equipment. At that range, the bullet would take nearly 4 seconds to reach the target, and environmental factors would have massive effects on trajectory. Environmental conditions? Elena asked their weather specialist. Temperature, 42 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity, 67%. Barometric pressure, 24.31 inches due to altitude. Wind, variable from the northwest, 8 to 15 miles per hour. Elena began making calculations for the shot. At 1,612 meters in high altitude, the bullet would drop nearly 30 feet from the line of sight. Wind drift could be as much as 5 feet in any direction. More challenging was the target identification. Elena would need to positively identify Al-Masri among multiple individuals before taking the shot. A mistake could mean killing an innocent person or allowing the real target to escape. "Contact," Martinez whispered. Multiple individuals emerging from the main building. Elena swung her rifle toward the compound. Through her powerful scope, she could see several men walking across the central courtyard. But at 1,612 meters, even with advanced optics, positive identification was difficult. Elena studied each figure carefully, comparing them to photographs of Al-Masri. The bomb maker was a small man with distinctive facial scarring from an explosives accident years earlier. Then she saw him, walking across the courtyard toward a vehicle. Al-Masri was unmistakable despite the distance. Elena had memorized every detail of his appearance during years of hunting him. "Target identified," Elena whispered. Halil Al-Masri, center of compound, moving toward the vehicle. Elena settled into her final shooting position. At 1,612 meters, this would be the longest shot of her career and possibly the most important. She controlled her breathing and felt her heartbeat slow to its minimum rate. Through her scope, Al-Masri looked impossibly small, a tiny figure moving Across the crosshairs, Elena made her final scope adjustments, compensating for wind, distance, and altitude. The shot would require absolute precision. Any error would mean al-Masri would escape to kill more. American soldiers. Al-Masri stopped beside the vehicle and turned to speak with another man. This was Elena's opportunity. The target was stationary and clearly visible. Elena found her natural respiratory pause and began applying pressure to the trigger. Years of training and experience had led to this moment: justice for her brother, Miguel, and all the other soldiers al-Masri had murdered. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle's recoil was sharp and immediate, but Elena maintained her sight picture, watching through the scope as the bullet traveled toward its target. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Al-Masri suddenly collapsed, struck by Elena's perfectly placed shot. Even at 1,612 meters, Elena could see that the round had found its mark. Target down, Martinez confirmed through her spotting scope. Halil al-Masri is eliminated. Elena felt a profound sense of closure. After 5 years of hunting, the man who had killed her brother was finally dead. Justice had been served by a bullet fired from over a mile away. The compound erupted in chaos as the assault team began their diversionary attack. But Elena's work was done. She quickly packed her equipment while her security team provided OVERWATCH. As they began their movement to the extraction point, Elena realized that this mission represented the end of something. She had proven everything she needed to prove, achieved everything she had set out to accomplish. It was time to move on to the next phase of her life. Elena stood before the assembled crowd at the Army Sniper School graduation ceremony, wearing her dress uniform adorned with ribbons that told the story of an extraordinary military career. Today marked a special milestone. Her 309th and final confirmed kill had been recorded 6 months earlier during a counter-terrorism operation in Syria. She was retiring from active duty to focus full-time on training the next generation of snipers. But first, she had been asked to speak to the newest graduates. When I enlisted 12 years ago, Elena began, I was told that women couldn't be snipers, that we lacked the physical strength, the emotional control, and the killer instinct necessary for precision warfare. She paused, looking out at the graduating class that included 8 women among its ranks. I'm here today because those people were wrong. Not about the requirements. Sniper training does demand physical strength, emotional control, and the ability to make life and death decisions under pressure. They were wrong about who could meet those requirements. Elena gestured to the female graduates. These women didn't succeed because standards were lowered. They succeeded because they met the same standards as everyone else. They earned their places through skill, determination, and courage. The applause was thunderous, and Elena felt a warm pride as she watched the graduating snipers, male and female, united in their respect for each other's achievements. After the ceremony, Elena was approached by Sergeant First Class Jessica Martinez, who had gone on to become an instructor herself after completing 3 combat tours. Ma'am, I wanted to thank you, Martinez said. Not just for the training, but for showing us what was possible. Elena smiled. You showed yourselves what was possible. I just pointed you in the right direction. There's something else, Martinez continued. The Army is naming the new sniper training facility after you, the Elena Vasquez Center for Precision Marksmanship. Elena felt her throat tighten with emotion. That's quite an honor. You've earned it. Your techniques are now part of official doctrine. Your record may never be broken. But more importantly, you've opened doors that will never close again. That evening, Elena stood on the same hill where she had first learned to shoot 12 years earlier. The sun was setting over the Georgia landscape, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from the uncertain recruit who had faced Drill Sergeant Torres's skepticism to the master Sniper whose techniques were now taught to soldiers around the world. 309 confirmed kills. Each one had saved American lives, but Alina no longer defined herself by that number. Her true legacy was the hundreds of snipers she had trained, the barriers she had broken, and the example she had set for future generations. Her phone buzzed with a text message from her mother. Saw your retirement ceremony on the news. Your father would be so proud. When are you coming home? Alina smiled and typed back, soon, Mom, very soon. But first, she had one more responsibility. Tomorrow she would begin training a new class of sniper candidates, 24 soldiers, who had volunteered for the hardest course the military offered. Half of them were women. Alina looked out over the training ranges where those students would spend the next 8 weeks learning skills that would keep them alive in combat. She thought about the young women who would face the same doubts and challenges she had overcome, and the knowledge that their path would be easier because of the trail she had blazed. The sniper who had been told she didn't belong had created a place where everyone belonged, as long as they could meet the standards and do the job. Elena Vasquez, call sign Reaper 6, had proven them wrong with more than just 309 kills. She had proven them wrong with 309 lives saved, hundreds of students trained, and a legacy that would inspire warriors for generations to come. As she walked back toward the base, Elena realized that her greatest shot hadn't been the 1,612-meter kill in Afghanistan or the record-breaking precision shots that had made her famous. Her greatest shot had been taking aim at a system that said she couldn't succeed, and proving them wrong one bullet at a time. The woman who had once been told that females couldn't be snipers had become the most successful sniper in military history. More importantly, she had ensured that no woman would ever again be told that something was impossible simply because of her gender. In the end, Elena Vasquez hadn't just broken records, she had broken barriers that would never be rebuilt. The proof was in the numbers: 309 confirmed kills, 847 students trained, and countless lives saved. But the real proof was in the young women who would follow in her footsteps, carrying rifles with confidence and wearing the title sniper with pride. They said women can't be snipers. Elena Vasquez proved them wrong. Thank you for joining Elena's incredible journey from recruit to legend. If you enjoyed this sniper's proof and want to hear more amazing stories of courage, determination, and breaking barriers, please subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new stories of extraordinary individuals who change the world through sheer force of will. What story would you like us to tell next? Leave your suggestions in the comments below. And don't forget to share this story with someone who needs to hear that impossible is just a word, not a fact. Until next time, remember, the only limits that truly exist are the ones we accept.